welcome back to today's video. A couple of videos ago I asked you guys if you would be interested in me making a best drugstore sponges video, and a lot of you guys said you would be interested in it. So here I am making this video for you guys, and I love beauty sponges, and if you are on a budget and you can't afford $20 for the beauty blender, there are so many great alternatives, thankfully, at the drugstore, and I have tons of them here to show you guys. Some are really good, and then I also have some ones that I don't love as much to show you guys. I think the drugstore has been working really hard to get up to the level of the beauty blender and the kind of like material and foam that they have, because it is like a special foam. No one knows where it's made or anything like that. But I feel like drugstore sponges are just getting really, really good. If you guys have not subscribed yet to my channel, I hope you will. It's the first link down below in my description box. And make sure you have your notification bell turned on, because YouTube has not been notifying everyone when a video goes live, which totally stinks. But make sure you guys are also following me on social, because I always update you guys on like Insta stories and Snapchat, and I have those linked down below in my description box. So if you guys are curious to find out what are my top favorite drugstore beauty sponges, then just keep on watching. We're gonna get into it right now. We're starting out big. My Real Techniques body sponge. So I don't know if you can tell, but this is like double the size of a regular Real Techniques sponge, which, by the way, was one of my favorites. I think I got rid of it because maybe it got old. I don't have one anymore, but I heard they changed the foam. If you guys have the new one, can you confirm in the comments if they changed the foam on it? If so, that totally stinks, because that was like one of my favorites. It's the reason I got this one. It's supposed to be for like blending out your self-tanner or like, I guess, body makeup. I don't do body makeup, and I rarely wear self-tanner. I actually got this because I wanted to be able to blend my makeup out faster, so I figured why not get a giant sponge. And this is the biggest beauty sponge you will ever find at the drugstore, probably anywhere. It's huge, and I thought once I wet it, it would be great for just applying makeup really quickly, maybe on a day when I was like super busy or I just had to get ready really quickly, and it does work really well for that. So if you just want to slap on your foundation really quickly, then I recommend you check out the body sponge from Real Techniques. It's $8 at Ulta. Really nice texture to it. It's really soft, just like the original Real Techniques sponge. It also has the pointed side, which is nice. I don't really use this for blending out my concealer, just because this would be probably way too big. Okay, next sponge is from Urban Beauty United, or UBU. A lot of you guys probably haven't heard about this brand before. I've talked about it a little bit in the past. You can get their products on Target.com, and you can also get their products shipped from Target.com to your Target store. I consider Target a drugstore. You can get drugstore makeup there, so I wanted to throw this one in here. It's not my absolute favorite, like you can see compared to the L'Oreal one. Like, look how much more squishy. I'm going to use that word a lot in this video, so be prepared for me to say squishy 100 times. But you can see that this one is more firm, it's more dense, whereas this one is a lot more softer. Retails for $8. Now, if you're comparing this one with the L'Oreal sponge, I say go with the L'Oreal one. This feels like when you are blending out your makeup, it feels like it's harder to blend out your foundation just because this is so dense and hard. It's not the hardest one I've ever used, because believe me, I've used some sponges that feel like actual rocks on your face. This one's not too bad. It's a decent option, so I just wanted to talk about it because you can get it from Target. Okay, next up is my favorite, at least in like my top 3. It is the L'Oreal oh my gosh, the L'Oreal Infallible Blender Sponge. This like broke the internet. Like, this was probably the best drugstore sponge to come out this year. It is so good, you guys. Highly recommend. I need to pick up another one. It blends out my makeup beautifully. It is so comparable to the Beauty Blender. It has literally like the same type of foam. It's just that the shape is different. So mine's held up pretty well for about 6 months. It's starting to see little rips here and there. Like there's one here, a little bit on the booty of the blender, as I like to say. So the only thing that stinks about this is that when it dips in the middle over here, you kind of like lose that blending space. When I use a sponge, I use like all angles of it because I use it for powder, concealer, concealer, foundation. I use all the angles of my sponge. And another thing about this is that since it's so wide up here, it's not as tapered as the Beauty Blender. It's harder to reach underneath the eye, and that is where the smaller blenders come in. I hope they come out with a small version of this because I would totally get that. It's a little too fat for up here. Do I still blend out my under eye concealer with it? Yes, I do. One of the closest things you're going to get to the Beauty Blender in terms of the feel of it, the way it blends out the foundation, and also the foam texture is very similar. It retails for $8 at Ulta and on Ulta.com, and this has 1,500 reviews on Ulta.com, so that tells you something right there. This is super popular. Whenever I go to the drugstore, it is always sold out. I'm sure that they're going to come out with more like this because when a product does really well for a brand, usually the brand will capitalize off of that and they'll make other colors, and you know, they like to capitalize off of popular selling products. So I honestly feel like since I have gotten this sponge from L'Oreal, I haven't even thought about purchasing a new Beauty Blender, to be honest, just because this one has worked so well for me. It is so soft. And that is usually one of the factors I look for in a sponge, is how soft it is, how squishy it is. Is it just me, or are they getting really out of hand with the shapes of sponges? This is the Real Techniques Miracle Wedge Contour Sponge. Now, I never reach for this. Look at this thing. It's like covered in cat hair. This is like someone took a beauty sponge and just literally like chopped it in half. So this is supposed to be for blending out your contour, which I use a regular sponge to blend out my contour. Like I told you guys, I use my sponge literally for like everything. So this, to me, it's just like, I feel like it's really awkward to hold because it's so small, and like, I don't know, I feel like it just kind of falls through your hand. If I use this for something, I guess, I mean, the pointed side, I'm not really going to use this to blend out my concealer because it's just, it feels really strange. I would rather use a smaller blender sponge. I feel like this is one of those items that ends up getting discontinued just because it's like just strange. The next one I want to talk about is actually a sponge from Ulta Beauty's Ulta line, from their Ulta collection. How many times can I say Ulta? This is, I don't even know what this is called. I've had this for a while now, but this is one that no one really talks about. I hope this didn't get discontinued. I just got it in the sponge section at Ulta. There's that little like bath section. So look over there for this. This sponge is super squishy, super soft, and I really like it. The only thing is that it's not really great for like blending out all over your face, just because the shape of it is kind of like strange. It's like they took two beauty blenders, cut them in half, and then put them together. I was using this sponge this week and I really like the way that it blended out my foundation. So soft, feels very similar to the L'Oreal sponge. Next up is the Ecotools Total Perfecting Blender. This retails for $6 on the Ulta website. So what's different about this one is that it doesn't have a pointed tip. It has this flat edge right here. I like this flat edge that it has because it's really nice for baking powder underneath the eyes. However, it's a little bit more difficult to blend out concealer just because it doesn't have that pointed tip. So it's a little bit different in that regard, but I do love the foam on this one. Another really soft blender. If I had to choose between this one and the L'Oreal one, I would probably say I like the L'Oreal one a bit more. This one has a really nice little blender booty for blending out your foundation. This is definitely in my top favorites, and I remember when this first came out, everyone was like, oh my gosh, it's the best. It really is a really good sponge, and it's very affordable. When I first bought this, I actually had to exchange it because within a day of using it, it ripped. And actually something interesting about this blender is that it's made from sugar, which I don't know how they did that, but it's a special sort of like natural material that they used. I remember I saw that online and I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. I love how Ecotools uses like natural materials for their brushes and their sponges. Okay, so I just looked it up. It's actually made from sugar cane, which is really cool. So in here, it is made of 71% plant-based materials, and everything is renewable, 100% vegan. So if you are vegan or you're cruelty-free, then this is probably going to be your best option for a drugstore sponge. I like the two flat sides that it has. So it has one here, it has one here. I'll use that for foundation too. You can use the bottom or you can use the sides. Also really good for like the sides of the nose if you want to bake over there. Here's another sponge that I just don't understand. It's this Real Techniques Miracle Sculpting Sponge. I had to make sure I got the name right. So this is another like funky shaped one. I feel like this top part right here, rather than using it to blend out anything, I feel like I'd use it more like a handle, because that's just naturally where my hand goes when I reach for this. Then for blending out foundation, you just have this flat surface right here, because I'm not going to use this. So to me, I don't like this sponge. I feel like I would rather reach for a regular wedge shaped sponge rather than this. It just kind of seems like there's so much unused surface area on this. I would say you could pass on this one. It's just a little bit silly to me. I did a whole video devoted to this next sponge. It is the Flower Beauty 3-in-1 blender sponge. This, oh my gosh, it's so soft. It blends out your foundation so beautifully, and it's definitely one of my favorite sponges. I love the bottom of this, how big it is, and then you have this little flat surface right here, and then it comes to a tiny little point. Well, I said this I think when I reviewed it, but it's a little bit difficult again to get underneath the eyes just because it's so fat up here. But this foam on this blender, it is so comparable to the Beauty Blender. This retails for $9. You can get this on, I think, Walmart's website as well as the Flower Beauty website. I think it's more expensive though on the Flower Beauty website. You guys gotta try this one. It's so good, so soft, and it really does expand when you wet it. I hope they come out with more shapes in this sponge, maybe like one that's shaped a little bit more like a Beauty Blender. I don't know if they can do that. Maybe that's like not allowed. But I love this thing. Like, look how soft it is. I'll hold it up against the L'Oreal one so you can see. I feel like it's even softer, honestly, than the L'Oreal one. So these two are my favorites. This is another one of those sponges where if you try this, you probably won't even want to go back to the Beauty Blender because it feels just like it. The surface right here where it's flat, I feel like it could be a little bit bigger, but I get that they had to probably differentiate their shape from other brands. Highly recommend. I have another Real Techniques one here. This is the Real Techniques Diamond Blending Sponge, and I knew I had to get this when I saw they first launched it. Mine is so beaten up. You could see it's all like ripped. So I've had this for, I don't know how long I've had this, maybe like almost a year. I always wash my sponges though before I use them. It's definitely time for me to get a new one, but I love, of course, that this is marble. What girl doesn't love all things marble? I know I do. I had to get this because the pattern was so fun, and the only thing I will say about this is that it's a little bit flimsy because it's soft. But like this sponge, because it has a point here, which I do use for blending out my under eye concealer, you can also use it for highlight if you want to. Just a little bit on the flimsy side, like look at the tip of it. When you're blending out with this, it doesn't feel as like sturdy, if that makes sense. So it's a little floppy because of the shape of the actual diamond, I guess. These surfaces right here, these flat surfaces, I guess you're supposed to use them for blending out contour, highlight, whatever. I try and use all the surfaces of this. I use this flat side for blending out my foundation, and I love how soft this is. This is definitely the most fun sponge that I own. Each of the Real Techniques diamond sponges, they have a different pattern of marble, so no two Real Techniques diamond sponges are going to look the same, which I thought was kind of cool. Next one I want to talk about is the Maybelline Face Studio Blender. This retails for $5.94 at Walmart and on the Walmart website. I got mine in store at Walmart. So this one, it is not bad. It's not my favorite, but it's also not the worst I've ever tried. Something strange about it is it has this little, like, I don't know, it's like this little thing on the bottom here, I guess to make it stand up. It's like a little seat on it. So I just kind of find that unnecessary because this right here is the part where I'm going to be using to blend out my foundation. So I don't really want a stand on the bottom of my blender. I don't really sit mine up on the counter. I put mine in a jar. I mean, everyone's different, but for me, I just don't find that I need that. I like how curved it is. It kind of swoops up, which is different from all the other sponges I have. So it kind of hugs your face nicely, and it hugs your eyes and like the cheeks nicely. So I like that it has this like little teardrop shape, and it comes to a nice fine point. So it's easy to blend out underneath your eyes, which I like. So it's a good option if you're at Walmart and you just want to pick one up. Again, I would say go with the L'Oreal one, go with the Ecotools one. If you really want like the best one. I would say go for those two. This one to me is just kind of middle of the road. I will say it's pretty soft. It's not like hard as a rock, and it definitely has some like bounce back where it's a little bit more on the dense side, but it's not hard and it doesn't feel like I'm really punching myself when I'm using it, which is a good thing. I don't reach for it every day, but I don't mind using it once in a while. We have a special guest. Okay, so I want to talk to you guys about baby sponges next. So these are like the smaller version of the makeup sponges. My favorite small sponge would have to be the Real Techniques little sponges. So these are the mini Miracle complexion sponges. These are so good, you guys, for blending out underneath your eyes. So if you have one of the sponges, like I said, that's a little bit too chunky for underneath the eyes, you're going to want to reach for these guys. And it comes in a pack of 4, which is amazing. I got these at Ulta. They do expand a bit when you wet them. So this is what it looks like when it's wet, and then this is a dry one. But they're so soft and squishy. I love using both sides of these for blending out underneath my eyes. Like literally my favorite tool for that. The pointed side is great for getting under there. It's really great for like the little nose creases because my foundation tends to crease in that area. Also really good for your smile lines. I would have to say the Real Technique ones are my favorite little mini sponges, and these are very comparable to the Beauty Blender little mini sponge. The reason I really like these mini ones is for a night out. So if you're going out, you could throw these in your makeup bag and just like touch up on the go. So maybe if you want to absorb some oil, because you can also use these sponges when they're dry to pick up oily spots on your face. I like that I can just throw these in my bag for traveling. So those are all my favorite sponges at the drugstore. I hope you guys liked this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up so I know that you liked it, and let me know, comment down below if there are any drugstore sponges that I like forgot about or maybe I missed, and if you guys have a good recommendation. I love trying out your recommendations, so definitely let me know. And thank you guys so much as always for watching. I love you guys, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.